Want to know how we drink? We drink sexy. And it's because we drink 500 vodka. It's gluten-free, corn-based, and offers 3 premium products that is unmatched in the market today. Super ultra premium neutral, coconut pineapple, and strawberry lime. It is available in Total Wine stores in San Antonio, Texas, and Austin, Texas. If you want to vibe with us, then drink responsibly. Drink sexy. Drink 500 vodka.
Listening to a podcast. Now you are listening to the Pimp Gas. You thought you were listening to a podcast. Now you are listening to the Pimp Gas. You thought you were listening to a podcast. Now you are listening to the Pimp Gas. You thought you were listening to and you're here with the Velvet Vibes podcast once again. We're not letting COVID-19 slow us down, get lazy, sit on the couch and scratch our butt cheeks all day. We got to keep grinding and keep that content coming. You may think that I'm chilling in a bird's nest, sitting back eating chicken wings, but that is not the case. I'm on the line with a young gentleman that's out there in a fur coat in Hawaii, in a bird cave, keeping it pimping. Talk to us, Mr. Kamara Tucker.
What's up, bro? That introduction was awesome. I'll just say that, yes, I am in lovely yet expensive Hawaii, where the birds and most other people seem to be extremely positive for some reason, which is definitely something that I'm still getting accustomed to.
Hey, it's a shame that we have to get used to positivity, but let them sprinkle it on you. But I'll tell you this: we do a lot of cutting up on this podcast. We do a lot of acting a fool and bringing up strange conversations. But today, I think it's time that we have a real conversation. And I've been seeing it for y'all that are unaware of this. First off, where can they follow you? So if they want to hear some of these great gems.
Oh, okay. So you guys can follow me on Instagram, Tuck1914. That's shout out to my fraternity. Also, I have a podcast, and the link is in the bio on there. But I also have a page for it on Instagram. The Proof Not the Exception, simply just a podcast that me and my wife started roughly a couple of months ago, just kind of giving people a little bit of insight on life, love, relationship, living in Hawaii, man, from the perspective of a young black couple trying to figure shit out.
Well, before we just skip past that, I gotta say, it's funny that you said that you guys have a podcast, because I was already thinking about having a talk with you after this episode about you need to start a podcast. But it sounds like you're already on board. So that's the business.
Oh, definitely.
So, and I think some of the things we're going to talk about may be some of the things you may have covered on your show already or will be covering.
Right.
But I think it's time that we bring it to a broad audience all the way across the board. So I've been looking at some of the things you've been posting, and, unlike, some people just want to sit and goof off on the internet. I've done enough goofing off for probably all of us, as you know. For y'all that don't know, we did go to school together, or we did grow up together, but now we are adults and we got to have some real conversations. There's more to life than beatboxing in the gym. But
agreed.
You're clearly an advocate for Black love. From what I've been seeing on your page, I've been actually watching this stuff incomplete, not just glancing through and trying to find another twerk video. I'm like, hold on, it sounds like he's actually talking about something. Let me listen and see what he's saying. And if I agree, and a lot of times I'm agreeing with what you're saying, I just think these are conversations that are not had. And as you know, it seems that you feel the same way. So what put you in this position to be such an advocate for Black love?
Well, man, just to be honest, and I think I think, most people, at least most people that I grew up with, can relate, man. Like my parents, shout out to my parents. They're still married. Um, but I never, even in the 30 plus years that they've been together, um, I've never seen my parents appear to be happy, which, for a lot of people that I grew up with, they can attest to the same thing. You have parents that almost just seem like business partners where the emotion and the happiness was kind of taken out of it. Maybe they were content with just being together because one side or even both sides didn't think about starting over. Maybe it seemed like too much of a headache to start over after you had kind of collected these assets and your lives were so intertwined. But it was a horrible example for me personally. It was a horrible example of what not just black love, but just love in general. It was a horrible example of what that is. So, my last marriage, because this is my second time being married, but my last marriage, like, I strived so hard to be the exact opposite of what my parents were, more in particular, what my father was. And, I can be honest now, like, I was him and worse. Trying to fight these demons and trying to ignore like all these emotions and all these negative feelings by masking it with being disconnected or with not addressing any other type of emotions of loneliness or needing someone, was something that I struggled with. So now, after going through a divorce in a extremely dark time, like, that's that alone time forced me to really, really face my demons and kind of look at things that I really, really needed to do to grow the fuck up. So now, kind of giving a second chance at life, literally, life and happiness. I make it a priority, man, to not have my son as much as I can because I can't protect him from everything, but I want to make sure that he doesn't have the exact same struggles that I've faced as a man. So it's important, man. It's important because I feel like the media and society, like, we don't get enough representation of what black love is or what black beauty is. I think you can attest to this as well. Like, growing up, like, the standard for what beauty was usually a white woman. The standard for the perfect family was usually, white picket fence with a nice white family, a little a little golden retriever, whatever. But it was the only example we had for the most part was the Cosby Show, and then you can even add in Fresh Prince or whatever. But seeing black love and black representation is something that even in 2020, I feel like we don't get nearly enough of. So for me personally, like I said, feel like what better example? I can talk about it all day, but what better example, than to give people an insight into my life and to kind of let them know, like, yo, like, I've gone through this shit. I've gone through the failures of marriage and being a fuck up as a husband. And, here I am now with another opportunity, an even better opportunity, and I have a story to tell. Because I think we tend to be able to relate, or we listen to people more when we can relate to them, when we don't just see like all of their positive accolades and achievements. When we know that somebody's been down in the dumps, it's almost like rooting for an underdog. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Now, I've heard you on your Instagram state this before, and it seemed like you kind of went there here. Now, on your IGTV, I saw the other day that you were making some of these same points, and you had to, which is a shame that you had to make this point, but you had to make it clear that you're not against any other love, but you're speaking to your story, which is black love. Have you received any like messages or people having a problem with the way you present the information you're giving?
Oh, definitely, man. And I hate to say it, but it's my Caucasian friends or counterparts. And is the way I look at it, man, is almost in the same breath of when the Black Lives Matter movement was at its peak. Like, us saying Black Lives Matter doesn't in any way, dismiss other lives. It's just, to me, me saying, Black love matters. It's saying that Black love matters as well. Like, everybody we see white love, on television every day. Like, you look at I'll say probably 95% of like the sitcoms and all these things on television, like it's usually geared towards white America. That's still in the year 2020. That's still the standard of beauty. And when we look at like a lot of the black shows and the black representation on television is usually love and hip hop. It's usually like us being depicted in a very negative light. You know, we got to be fighting, we got to be ratchet, we got to be all of this, which, you know, I'm all for, like, you know, us being ourselves. Like, I'd hate to see like black people be put on television and be forced to act a certain way. But also, like, 9 times out of 10, when we're on television, it's being depicted in a negative way. So we've been put into a box. But I've definitely gotten a couple of messages, from my friends, you know, asking, why do you have to say black love? And I'm like, yo, because I'm a black man. Like, that's my fucking experience. Like, I'm speaking from a point of where I've gone, what I've gone through. I can't speak on white love or interracial love when that's not my cup of tea. That's not my experience. And I'm all about like talking about things that I've gone through, not just things that I know about. So
have you ever got to the point that you've lost friends over this? Not maybe just over saying that, but just some of the content that I know your Facebook, it seems like you toned down now, but it seems like it used to be really popping with this type of content. And, you know, you might put a meme up that actually is facts. It wasn't nothing like wrong with the post you were making, but I know people would try to rebuttal and dispute it until it goes 100 comments of fire. So have people ever got and I'm aware these have to be your friends because they're commenting, so I'm like, these must be his friends. But have it ever got to the point like that you like, okay, I don't fuck with this dude no more, or they don't fuck with you no more?
You know what, man? Honestly, I have. And like I said, most of the time, all the times where I can think about like where I've just had to like unfriend somebody, it's been, you know, on Facebook, and it's been people that like, yo, I really thought that I was rocking with them. And I'm all about like people having differences of opinions, except when it comes to certain shit. Like, if you can't acknowledge that like racism still exists, that it's just in a different form. In most cases, sometimes it's still like extremely blatant. But if you can't acknowledge the fact that systemic racism is a real thing, and that like, yo, at just me being a black man, like I'm already at a disadvantage. I have issues with that. So like I've had, you know, not on black love tip, but definitely on like, yo, black experiences, and black struggle. Like a lot of people that the people that I've unfriended, they kind of tried to match like the black struggle. Like, what about the Jews that were killed and blah, blah, this. And I'm like, yo, like, that's not me. Once again, like me talking about the black struggle in no way dismisses struggles of other ethnicities or cultures. I'm just saying that at this point in time in society, like there's things that black people have to do that other races don't. You know, like I'm fearful for my son, even though he's 6. Like I'm fearful about having to talk to him about like, son, there's a good chance that, you know, once he gets his license, there's a good chance that you can get pulled over by the police. You can do literally everything right, and there's still a chance that some fucked up shit is gonna happen to you. Like, I don't think that white people become frightened literally by the mere fact of seeing police lights come on, you know. And, you know, I think you can agree, like, you know, growing up in Mississippi where you see Dixie flags and, you know, certain parts of, you know, the state not to go in, Saltillo, Morville, all of this other stuff. Like, you know, those are things that white privilege, white people won't acknowledge. You say what now?
I said I done been chased out of Dorsey with a shotgun.
Exactly. Like, and that's something that I'm like, yo, like, just acknowledge it. I'm not blaming them per se for the things that happen, but white people have a privilege and they have a platform to where like, yo, like all black people, I'm not looking for a handout. I'm not looking for some type of advantage. I just want the same opportunities for myself, for my wife, for my son that everybody else has. Like I'm a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen. Like, why should I be looked at as a disadvantage simply because, you know, people look at my job application and they see the name Kamara and they like, oh, you got a nigga name. Like, I don't know. Or they see me and I'm 6'1", 230 pounds with tattoos, you know. oh, he must be, angry black man girl and all this other bullshit. Like, those are struggles that excuse me, our white counterparts literally don't have to go through. And I think all we want as a culture is just to be acknowledged, especially, clearly, other ethnicities, they feed off of our creativity. They feed off of, black culture, black dance, black music, all of these other things. Like, why not acknowledge us in the other ways as well, not just in ways that you can benefit from. But a lot of my friends that I've unfriended, they don't want to have that conversation because it makes them uncomfortable. So
I feel like
I'd rather unfriend them.
I feel like if people follow you based on this conversation, they'll see how, just hearing you talk and just seeing what you look like, how you can't judge a book by its cover. Because I feel like both of us probably get that really bad anyway. Like, I look a certain way, but then I'm a goofball once you get to know me. But if you just look at a picture, you're like, oh hell no. But
exactly, people think I'm like this angry, like, hot tempered person, and I'm like, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow, man. I hate conflict. I hate confrontation. Doesn't mean I won't knock the fuck out of somebody, but like, it's not my go-to. But like, being judged off of, and up until like right when we moved here, like, I had a nose ring, had the whole nine or whatever, man. And just some of the looks that I would get, man, was crazy. And for a while, like, I would wear hoodies and stuff because it covered all of my tattoos and shit. And I was like, man, like,
fuck that.
I'm in Hawaii with fucking hoodies on. Like, those motherfuckers about to pass out simply because I don't want people to perceive me as a threat, But then, the older I've gotten and the more comfortable I've gotten with myself, the more I realize that, like, a person's fears and a person's issues with me, like, that's not my concern to worry about. So,
facts. So tell me this. We talked about the fact that you are having a different approach towards this marriage and towards your son. Even, what are you doing to have a different approach? Like, we know that you're showing them love. We know that you're giving them, but what is it that you're making sure to implement exactly?
Man, honestly, communication. And it's funny because we just shot like the last episode of our season 1 last night, and we talked about parenting, and we just kind of talked about like different the way that we parent as opposed to how our parents parented us. And like, for me, like, I correct my kid, like, when he does something wrong. Like, I'm like, hey buddy, like, we don't do that. As opposed to how we were raised, parents fuss at you, and literally, like, the simplest thing, you would literally think that, like, you went out and robbed a fucking bank.
You get slapped in the mouth.
So, like, yeah, for me, like, it's like, I never thought that I would be the parent that doesn't spank my kid. You hear all that, like, yo, you get out of line, I'm gonna whoop your ass. But, like, I've never spanked my kid or whatever. I've always talked to him, like, because for me, like, an ass whooping as a kid, like, it instilled fear in me more so than it did, like, understanding of what I'd done wrong. So, like, for me, like, in this marriage and being a father, man, like, patience and communication has been, like, my strong suit. Understanding that, like, as smart as my child is, he's still a kid, and just fussing at him doesn't necessarily help him. Like, he's already, like, advanced for his age, but I've kind of found more balance. I guess that would be the main thing that's changed in between marriages. Like, I fuss at my kid, but even in the moments where I fuss at him, I still let him know that he's loved. I still let him know that I'm proud of him. I'll tell him, like, yo buddy, like, dad doesn't like when you do that. That's mean, that's this, but, overall you had a good day. I don't want you to think that you're a bad kid. And it's simple things, man. It, like,
facts.
How much better off would we have been as adults now had our parents literally, like, just taken the time to talk to us, as opposed to, like, that quick reflex of, like, nah, you getting your ass beat.
I'm gonna tell you one thing. When I was a kid, and I'm sure you're aware that the belt was coming down from the clouds with a lightning bolt on the back of it. But the times that somebody looked at me and said, you know what, I'm very disappointed in you, that killed me way more.
Yep.
Because I was like, I don't care what you think of me. I didn't at that time. I was like, I don't really care what you think of me. But if you expected more from me and I didn't do that, that kind of made me be like, dang. Or like my grandpa could look at me and say, I thought you would do better than that. Or so it made me really look at myself like, dang, everybody thought I was gonna do good. Maybe I can try doing good.
Man. But it's crazy because like for me, like what I saw from my dad was like, and I see this in a lot of black men. I think I posted a video about it yesterday. Like I see this in a lot of I'll say black men in particular, but I think we see it a lot in black culture, but more specific black men. Like we know two emotions. We know anger and we know happiness, because anything in between is considered as weak. You know, like if as we growing up, like you cry, like, oh, don't do that. You ain't no girl, like man up. Like that's the constant thing that you hear, man up. Like, you know, you don't have time to feel sad. You don't have time to do this. And like, it leads to so much unpacking that you have to do as an adult. Like my last marriage, the biggest issue besides me fucking cheating and my wife cheating, my ex cheating on me, like the biggest issue all came down to communication. Like when I was upset or when I was displeased or sad or feeling lonely or insecure and needed some type of like affirmation or validation, like I didn't know how to explain to my then wife that like, yo, like I need you to tell me that I matter. So instead what I did was like, yo, I'm gonna go find a bitch who will tell and show me that I matter. Like, you know, instead of literally sitting down and having this conversation with, you know, my then wife. And all of that stems from, of course, like as an adult, like I can't continue to blame things from childhood, but it has a ripple effect, you know, and up until honestly, even now, man, like it's still something that I struggle with, like the feelings of resentment towards my parents for things that I wish they had done. But I thought about it in this pandemic, man, this whole COVID stuff has given me time to really, really like unlock and think about a lot of things, like how mad can I really be at my parents because they were only doing the same thing that was done to them. Like they really didn't know. Like my mom didn't know how to show emotion because guess what my grandma didn't do? She didn't show fucking emotion.
Let me stop you right there. Does that give you a level of forgiveness or a level of understanding? Like where are you now with your father with that?
So my father, I literally, what was it, last week or week before, like that was literally the first time that I've seen or spoken to him since 2016, and I was completely okay with that. I think that it's still a struggle between like acceptance of like knowing that they didn't know any better, but still realizing that like, yo, my feelings and what I felt and what I still feel are still valid, like regardless of understanding. Like, you know, it's like if your wife cheats on you or whatever, like that shit hurts. Even if you know, like, yo, I wasn't the best husband, or I wasn't open, or I wasn't inviting, and I pushed her away. It still doesn't change the fact that, like, yo, this bitch really cheated on me, and this shit hurts like hell. So it's a struggle. It's more of like balance, man, between really, really understanding that, like, yo, a person can only give you what they have. They only know what they know. But then at the same time, it's like, yo, but you're a grown ass you're an adult now. Like, you know, my parents are adults. They're older. Like, with age comes wisdom and all the other cliches and shit that you hear about. So it's like at this point, because I've kind of found some way of figuring it out of like, yo, like, let me give my kid exactly what he needs as opposed to continuing the exact same way that I was raised. It's still a struggle, man. I think it honestly just depends on the day. Like, cause there are times where it's like, yo, I'm really, really angry. Like my mom didn't know that I was remarried and that I had a kid until like, I want to say like right around February of this year, February or March. And I've been married like going on 2 years, been in a relationship for 3.
What caused you to keep that information?
Protecting something that I care about, man. Like, you know, like not on some Drake shit, like, yo, I wasn't hiding from the world and all, you know, all of that shit, but like, cause everybody else that knows me that I have some type of relationship with knew. Yeah. But my relationship with my parents has been extremely estranged. So, you know, for me, it's like, yo, like, why would I tell you about something that I'm really, really proud and happy about when our relationship is almost non-existent.
So let me ask you this:
it just depends on the day.
you kind of bringing me to a question I had anyway that I wanted to ask. Now, I understand where you're coming from, but when you're looking out of somebody else's eyes or somebody else's mind, how they could perceive this, do your other family members, siblings, or even your mom and dad, do they take it that you're acting funny? Or like, even with your posts, like when you post, you're very candid with the things you say, which I don't think there's nothing wrong with that, because this is your story and you're telling the truth. Does anyone ever feel attacked, like, oh, you putting my business out, or we ain't gonna talk to him no more?
Well, so that's the thing. Like, I think, as transparent as I am, like, me sharing my stories, it isn't for anybody else except me. And even with the things that I share, like, I don't really go into details. Like, I might say like, yeah, me and my mom, like, our relationship is strained, but I'll never go as far, especially not on a public platform, to be like, yeah, we don't talk because she opened credit cards in my name, or, I'll never go into details about that, because for me, it's taking away the attention of what I'm trying to do. Like, for me, like, my post, yeah, it's definitely to help people, but it's also therapeutic for me, like, to be able to be in a place to where I'm confident enough to, like, speak this shit out loud and get it out of my head. But I have had those conversations, like, where my brother or sister feel attacked because of something I said, and I'm like, anybody that knows me knows, like, my intentions are never to set out to destroy anybody or to make somebody feel inadequate or anything like that. But my purpose and, like, what I promised to myself, like, after like my low, which was like my last divorce, like, I was gonna live my truth, and I was gonna be, like, unapologetic, not intentionally disrespectful, but I was gonna be unapologetic. And once again, it just goes back to, like, people listen to you and people respect you more and people relate to you more when they know about your struggles. Like, yeah, it's cool for me to post pictures of my family and pictures of, me playing with my kid and, me having date night with my wife and all these other things. Like, all of that shit is glamorous and is admirable. But, like, the stuff that people really remember is like, like, this dude talks about, like, when he had suicidal attempts and suicidal ideation and how he didn't want to be here and he didn't feel worthy because, those insecurities is something that Black men don't talk about, like, because it's deemed as a sign of weakness. So, like, that, I feel like those are the things that people remember more so than anything. Is like, look at where this brother is now, as opposed to where he was, 3.5 years ago when he was at rock bottom. So, I've had those conversations with my siblings, not with my parents, because they don't follow me on any type of platforms or whatever. But, if word ever got back to them, like, it's a conversation I'd be willing to have. Like, I'm never going to shy away from it. But I also don't think, like, at this point, like, I don't think that my parents would ever be like, like, when you posted this, like, it made me feel this way.
And see, the thing about it, like, that's one thing that I feel like it's kind of easier. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's probably easier for us to unlearn those things than it is for our parents. And that makes us have this, like, firewall between us where, just like you said, there may be a conversation that may never happen. And not because they're unaware, but because even if they are aware, we got to have social media. Somebody could just say, look what he said. And they could just go,
exactly.
Oh, I'm not even going to ask him about it. And, we be feeling some kind of way. And we do this a lot. It's with us feeling some kind of way about things that we don't address. And it's also even with our health. And I'm sure you've had this where, you have a family member that's sick or maybe even passed. And you didn't even know they were sick at all. Or you didn't even know they was going through things, or somebody was homeless, or, like, what do you think needs to be done to inspire others to have these conversations, to say, hey, Kamara, I'm homeless, or I'm sick, or such and such is not doing well?
Man, honestly, bro, like, I hate sounding like this, but, like, I think for our parents, that conversation is something that's never going to happen. Like, you're looking at, I think for most of us, like, our parents are somewhere around 55, 60-ish. Like,
yeah,
you're looking at 6 generations of operating a certain way. Like, I think the only fix now is, like, for us, for our generation, to kind of change the narrative. Because growing up, like, conversations about mental health, conversations about physical health, conversations about financial wealth, like financial health. All of those things are things that, for most part, like at least for me, like those were conversations we never had. Like, there's any type of issue, what would my family do? Leave it to God, take it to God, and pray about. Like, yo, like I believe in God and I believe in higher beings and all these other things. But like, yo, there's conversations that need to be had. And I think like our generation is that we're at an age, like early to mid 30s, to where like we can have those conversations because we've only been operating in this sense for a certain amount of time. But I think for our parents, like, it's almost like, yo, just accepting them for who they are. But
I feel the same way.
I think our generation is a generation that has to kind of break that cycle, man. Like, and it comes down to like, yo, like, I know that this conversation is uncomfortable. Like, is for me, like, I approach anything that needs to be improved the same way, regardless of what it's in regards to, whether it's work and coworkers, whether it's friends and friendships, or whether it's my marriage. Like, yo, I know this conversation is uncomfortable. I know that chances are you're going to walk away from this feeling a little stressed, and your mood may not be in the best, but it's still that's the part of growth, man. Like, you got to have those uncomfortable conversations rather than doing like our parents did and like kind of sweeping shit under the rug and kind of praying that it just went away. Like, just because you don't acknowledge it doesn't mean that the shit doesn't exist.
Facts.
So
I'll never forget, man. I told my stepdad, I never will forget. I was maybe 13 or something, and I told my stepdad, I was like, I love you. And he was like, go outside and mow that grass. And I never said it again after that. I probably still to this day, I never said it again because it was so awkward. I hadn't said it prior to that either. I just was like, maybe this should be said. And then I said it, and then it was so bad that I just would never said it again.
Oh, definitely, man. Like, I remember being on, I don't know if it was my last deployment before I got out of the military, but it was one of my deployments. And just like you, like my dad and me and my dad had never exchanged those words. And I called to check on my mom. I think it was like 2014. And she's like, hey, your dad wants to talk to you. And, we're talking. He's like, hey, man, how's it going? And blah, blah, this. And I'm like, it's good. Like, weather's nice. See a lot of Africans. They love me. And before we got off the phone, he's like, love you, man. And I was like, love you too? Like, in a question form, like, yo, like, the fuck is this? Like, but that just shows how, like,
wow,
emotionally disconnected we were, like, to the point where, like, if somebody's saying something as simple as I love you comes across as weird. Like, for me, it was on the other end. Like, you were the one that initiated it with your dad. Like, my dad said it to me, and it was like the weirdest shit. So, like, something that I do with my kid, like, random moments in the day, I'm like, hey, buddy. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, love you. And he's like, I love you too. Say the same thing. Like, we say prayers before he goes to bed. I tell him I love him. Every day I tell him that he's cool, that I'm proud of him, all of these things. Because, like, right now he's 6, so he's a sponge. He's soaking all of these things up, and he's at the age, I can remember shit from when I was 6, like, very, very vividly. And I want him to remember, like, yo, like, my dad was always kind of giving me positive reinforcement and pouring into me, letting me know that I was loved, because I don't want him to grow up like me. Like, I was looking for love or looking for acceptance in places, and it caused me to do some, I'm going to say questionable shit, but it caused me to do some things that I'm not extremely proud of, and in search of acceptance and in search of, like, actually finding love. So, yeah, man, it's crazy. It's
love
extremely
thing,
crazy.
This love thing is a strong conversation to have, because even amongst, I think just it's a country thing, period, especially with black men in the country. Like, even my brothers and stuff, we never really said that amongst each other. And I remember one time we were at a funeral, and afterwards I told my brothers I loved them, and, they kind of said it back. And then after that, we didn't say it anymore. And I think it was another funeral, and we started saying it then. And after that, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep saying it. So even now, I'll call my brother and we'll talk, and then I'm like, I love you, man. And he'll like, I love you too. I didn't want that to be like, when something bad happens, then we're going to say we love each other. And all the rest of the time, it's going to be like, buddy, you know what it is? Fist bump. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're, I mean, as a culture, man, like, and like I said, like, our generation, man, like, we're the ones that are starting to kind of change that narrative and kind of turn the corner on, like, what we consider to be what is considered to be a man. Like, you know, our parents, like, being a man is like, yo, you work hard, you bust your ass, you provide for your family. That's it. Like, for me, it's like working hard is like, yo, I communicate with my wife. I let her know that she's loved. I do the same thing for my kid. Like, I actually interact with them. Like, on the days where I'm tired as fuck from work, like, my kid wants to go outside and blow bubbles, like, I know he knows I'm tired because I haven't been home all day, but he's a 6-year-old, so all he wants to do is play with his dad. Whereas, like, those are things that I wish I would have been able to do. You know,
Fact.
Kids don't understand, like, yo, dad's tired. They just see it like, yo, I want to play and my dad doesn't want to.
Fact.
So, like, taking those extra moments, like, yo, I can tell my kid I love him until the cows come in or whatever. But actions and all those other things speak volume as well. And like I said, I don't want it to be, once kids turn 13 or whatever, and they become extremely extremely self-absorbed, like, I won't say it's too late, but it's just it takes a lot more effort to kind of be able to have those conversations if you've never had them before, which is why, like, we started at a young age. As soon as my kid was able to, like, really, really talk and communicate, it was like, I love you, buddy. And it was like, I love you back. So, like, now
it's not weird.
It's not, it's the norm now. Like, it's expected. Like, you know, I think if we went a day without telling my kid, like, we love him, he'd probably think that something was wrong, you know, because he's gotten accustomed to, like, yo, I get hugs, I get kisses from my mom and dad every day. So anything outside of that would be considered, like, unusual or out of the norm. Exactly.
So tell me this: do you feel like because I feel this way when we're both in the same situation. We grew up in the same city, the same state, or I wouldn't even call it a city. We grew up in the same village. And
right
in that village, there's a lot of country views and a lot of ways that we looked at things. Besides your views on love or behaviors, rather, do you feel like there was a lot of things that you looked at a certain way that you had to unlearn, just like your views on stuff, like, you know, just throwing it out there, you know, and I'm not saying this in no kind of way, but in the country, the way you hear about people thinking about gay relationships or even religion, it's a lot of different things. It's not just one particular thing, but just the way you heard it growing up. When you moved away and you kind of was able to have your own thoughts, do you feel like there was a lot of things you had to unlearn?
Oh man, like, honestly, bro, like, just about everything. Like, I feel like the one thing that I've really, really kept from my childhood and from, like, you know, where I grew up at is my work ethic. Like, my parents, they busted their ass as far as work, but the village and everything that we grew up in, like, you was kind of taught that, like, you know, homosexuality was the devil or it was evil. And I'm like, some of my best friends are gay. Like, down to earth, you know, like, super supportive, super nice, super encouraging, all of these things. Like, but Mississippi Tuck that grew up there, like, wouldn't have even, like, felt comfortable enough with forming any type of relationship with a person that identified as gay. And simply because all of those thoughts is like, oh man, they're gonna try me or they're gonna do this or do that. So but in the country, Mississippi, and church and everything, like, gay is the devil and all these other things, where it's so weird because it's like homosexuality isn't accepted, but a person will, like, be cheating on their wife and have, like, a whole, like, our grandparents, like, they never had these conversations about, like, yeah, grandma and grandpa were together for 60 years, but granddad had stepped out on grandma and had a whole ass family. Like, but they stayed together.
Same on mine. Same in mine.
But it's crazy, like, and I don't know my parents' views and stuff now, whatever, but, like, homosexuality was always something that was looked upon, like, with displeasure or disgust. And, you know, like, now, me personally, I'm like, yo, like, who you love is who you love. Like,
I feel like
it's so hard to find.
I feel like where we came up, it affects a lot of ways how, like, if you stay there, and it's not just Mississippi, it's like Alabama, Tennessee, like those little regions. Mm-hmm. And that's not the only places, of course, but when you grow up hearing this stuff, and it's probably still going on to this day because, you know, it's just trickling down. It's like when you step out and you're able to have your own thoughts. It's interesting because I moved to Texas, And at one point I moved back home, which was a huge mistake, and I'm not there no more. But I did move back home, and I already kind of looked at things a little differently. And I remember I was working at this call center, and there was this guy that was in my training class. That he was a gay guy, and he was always cool with me. I never had a problem with him. And one day he was leaving, and he was like, "All right, Brian, bye, man. Have a good day." And I was like, "All right, what's up? You have a good one. Holler at you next time at work." But then somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and they was like, "I didn't know you was I ain't gonna drop the F-bomb, but that's what he told me." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
And I was like, "No." I was like, he's in the training class. And I didn't realize that you can't even say hi like down there, that even like just me speaking to him, I was automatically under the rainbow myself. I was like, "No, I'm not that, but I can say hi. I can say excuse me. Like, we can't communicate at all." And that's when I realized how crazy it was.
It's crazy because the same way that gays and stuff are treated, like in the South, is the exact same thing that blacks hate about how whites treat them. It's literally the exact same thing, like identical down to the T. But like that was probably the biggest thing that I learned. But like, I think another lesson that I had to learn, and it was part of the like detriment of my last marriage as well, was like just financial literacy. Like my parents never talked about money, but I always knew my parents struggled. Like they never had a conversation about like, hey, let's get our credit together. Let's pay our bills on time, and let's not always be, behind the curve on taking care of our things. But, after my last marriage and then coming into this one, like my current wife, like her parents talked to her about everything. They talked to her about like financial literacy and all of these other things. And it was something when we met, we talked about it. I was like, yo, like, I got to really get my shit together, before I pursue anything serious with her, which I'd already kind of started, even prior to meeting her. But those are conversations that we have. Like,
sometimes we need to be threatened. Money. We need to be threatened like that when we feel like we're not on their level, and we're like, oh shit, she's gonna have these expectations. I might need to work on these things.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly, man. But like that's a conversation that, like, people talk about like the reasons for divorce, and it's infidelity, it's money, and it's kids. Yeah. And all of those things are literally easily fixable with something as simple as like having the uncomfortable conversations. Like, a lot of people, they'll have kids because they feel like that's what's expected of them, and then they grow up, or they have these kids and it's like there's no connection or no attachment to them, or they kind of resent their kids because it's forced them to kind of change their lives. But a simple conversation is something that could easily fix that. Like me and my wife, we want to add to our family or whatever, but we have the conversation. We're like, yo, we're in Hawaii, like, and we haven't even been here a year, and this shit is like super expensive. Like, all right, let's wait and let's see what 2021 looks like. Like at that time, like if we want to have a kid, then like, yeah, let's approach the conversation, as opposed to like her feeling like it's expected of her as a wife to bear kids, so she just does it. Like, I feel like that's what my mom did. Like, and you can tell in a household where like the parents are together simply because they feel like it's what's best for the kids. But like I definitely like picked up on like my parents being unhappy and them kind of sticking it out, quote unquote, for the betterment of the family. But in actuality, like it actually made things worse for me. Like I would have rather have been like my parents split, and maybe I go spend the weekends with my dad, and and I'm spending the week with my mom, and feel loved in both of those places, than see my dad come home and he barely says anything to my mom. Like they're kind of cold towards each other, not intentionally, just like they are genuinely unhappy. But all of those things, man, literally come down to just basic conversation. But once again, like people have this fear of being like uncomfortable, like not thinking like, yo, discomfort means growth, regardless of what aspect it's in. Like whether you're talking about working out and lifting weights, or you're talking about like growth as far as discomfort and learning a new job or a new trade or whatever the case may be. Like all of that shit, still the end result is still growth. But people are afraid of that, man. They get complacent and content in where they are.
Did you ever feel like when you first met your wife, did you feel like you having this way of thinking and exposing that, hey, I'm emotional about this, or I'm a little down, this hurts me, did you ever think that it could be perceived the wrong way, like, oh man, he a little punk, or because that's the reason that we don't say these things, that I'm down, I'm hurt, I'm depressed, or
no, you know what, I actually didn't. So for one, like when me and my wife met or whatever, like it wasn't even on some like, yo, like I'm trying to pursue you type shit. It was literally, she, we have been following each other on social media. We had mutual friends. She's Greek, just like me or whatever. So we had a lot of mutual friends. And one day she just inboxed me and she's like, yo, like this video that you posted, like, yo, it really, really hits home. Like, I appreciate you for posting this and being transparent. And after that, like, it was literally just on some friendship type shit. Cause she was basically in the same place that I was. Like, she had gone through like a nasty relationship, and she was kind of like rediscovering herself and everything. So like our paths were similar. So it made it super easy. Like, she was extremely vulnerable about like what she had gone through, which made it easy for me to do the same thing, and vice versa. So like it was never a thought in my mind that like, yo, she's gonna perceive me as being a bitch or being less than or whatever, simply based off like how we met and how our initial conversations went. So
indeed.
Yeah, man. It was a match made in heaven, basically.
Do you ever have people that misunderstand, or not misunderstand, but they just come wrong with, just say you put a video up, they like what you're saying, and it's kind of like that Derek Jackson guy. Like, he says, hey, women want this, women want that. And some people, instead of just saying, because I think he is in a relationship, they say, oh, I want this guy. And that's the complete opposite of what you're preaching. So have you ever had a situation like that where somebody's like, oh, you're posting, I love my wife, I'm doing this for my wife, I'm doing this for my son and my family, and somebody's like, yo, hey, and it has to be addressed, or nobody ain't even came at you like that?
No, you know what? Surprisingly, I haven't. So like Derek Jackson, like when I post stuff, like I'm extremely, extremely like careful about what I post, like, which is why I say like I post things judged and based off of my experiences as a black man. Like, I try my best not to speak for like black men as a whole. I definitely stray away from like speaking on behalf of black women, because I am not a black woman. Like,
yeah.
But like I'm pretty sure like there are people that are out there that are. You've heard it before, where people like, yo, if you so happy, why you ain't got to post about it if you this happy. And for me, it's like after going through so much negative shit, like my relationship, like both my marriage and my relationship with my kid are literally like the two things that I'm the most proud of, and the two things that I feel like the happiest about or whatever. So why wouldn't? And it's the biggest part of my life. Like, it's bigger than my job. It's bigger than like fitness and all these other things. So like, in order for people to get to know me, like that's a big part of me. So like, to know me is to know that I love my wife. To know me is to know that like I'm an extremely proud father or whatever. But I haven't had anybody approach me on that. But just knowing humanity and how people operate, I know that there's people like in the shadows, like this motherfucker. If this motherfucker posts one more photo of his wife, or if he posts one more photo of him and his son and some hashtag of about some bullshit, like I'm gonna lose it. But it's easy to hit that unfollow button.
That's what I was gonna say. It's a very simple process. Shoot, but
I don't argue. Like, I used to really, really feel the need, and you hinted at this like when we started, like how I used to operate on Facebook, where like, and I'll still do it from time to time. Like, there are days where I'm like, yo, I got time for the shits today. Like, yo, if I really, really need to go back and forth with you, because when I don't post, especially when it comes to like how America perceives and treats like people of color, like that's something that I'm going to stand on until I'm gone. Like, there's nothing that somebody can say. Like, I don't care about people talking about Trump and statistics of black unemployment and all this other, like, none of that shit fucking matters to me. And like, when people have a rebuttal and they're like trying to kind of make me change my thought process, I'm like, all right, like, there are days where I have the time, but a lot of times I feel like this is my page, whether we talking about Facebook or whether we talking about Instagram. Like, I don't have the energy, man, to like, or the desire or need to like really go back and forth
Facts.
and defend why I decided to post something on my page. Like, I don't
Facts.
know. Like, I think people put like they put way too much stock and energy into things that other people do, and I'm like, yo, like, it's the same thing with like what we talking about, like homosexuality. Like, yo, what another man does, with his gay lover, or another woman does with her gay lover, like, yo, that shit doesn't affect me at the end of the day. As long as like you can respect me as a person, and vice versa, like I can literally get along with anybody from any race, any creed, any religion, whatever. Like, as long as respect for how I live my life, as long as it's not about like my life doesn't include putting down or like dismissing or marginalizing like other people, like I can get along with anybody if those aren't important factors in a person's life. So
If you're not a know-it-all and you're willing to learn, always with an open mind, you'll learn a lot, and you can learn from people that you may not necessarily agree with or have the same lifestyle. Probably a better word to say. You don't have the same lifestyle, you can still learn something from them. I've spoken with somebody that, gay people, and talking about something about their relationship that may actually apply to mine. I've spoken with
exactly.
with people that are, I've talked to devil worshippers, and they're telling me I'm not. Of course, I never was like, okay, I'm about to join this religion, but I've heard points that I'm like, oh, that's a good point that you made there. I'm able to say these things and not walk
Hmm.
away saying I'm going to do what you're doing. I can just say that's a valid point. That's a good question. And I think people
Exactly,
don't
man.
realize that if somebody says something that is not your lifestyle, you don't have to take it personal. You don't have to do it. If someone's vegan, you don't have to be vegan. If you want to wear a fur coat, you don't have to think they're going to throw paint on you. If that's what you want to do, that's your business.
Right. No, it's crazy, man. Because so when I was going through my divorce, like I'll give you a little backstory on it. So I got out of the military because of my marriage. Like my ex wife was like, "Yo, like I can't stay here." So I was kind of like given an ultimatum, like, "Yo, you either pick your career or you pick your marriage." So of course, like, pick my marriage. Got out, shit still went south, and she wanted a divorce, and I was like, "Yo, like where I'm from, like people don't get divorced. Like you stick this shit out." And just me being like arrogant still, even after my mistakes, I was like, "Yo, I'm tough." You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I always win at the end of the day. Like this shit is tough, but I always win. And I remember I went to Dallas to get a certification for a job, and one of my friends, frat brother, openly gay or whatever, gave me like the realest conversation and probably like some of the best relationship advice that I had gotten. He was like, "Tuck, your wife doesn't want to be married anymore, bro. You got to let that shit go. You got to own what you fucking did, and forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation." And he said that shit, and I was like, "Nigga, we supposed to be boys. You supposed to be encouraging me." Like, and he was like, "Nah, like he's like, I'm your boy and I'm gonna support you." He's like, "But I'm also gonna be real with you." And like when he said that, like it was still tough, because nobody wants to go through a divorce, because it's at the end when you look at it, it's literally like the ultimate failure in regards to dating, like
Right.
is a divorce, having to start over, and the person that already feels like they're kind of behind the curve on what they're supposed to be doing with their life. Like it was a minor setback for me, but that conversation in itself gave me the courage to be like, you know what? Let me go through with this fucking divorce. This girl doesn't want to be with me. I need to accept that shit. Like it's not like she doesn't want to be with me and I haven't done anything wrong. Like, yo, like I had a whole fucking list of like fuck ups that I created. So it's like, yo, just being realistic, who would want to be with a person who had caused them this much pain? And when I thought about it, which is something else that he said, he was like, "Bro, like, is this ever gonna be a real marriage again? Like, given everything that you put her through, the things that she's put you through, like, clearly you resent her because you got out of the military because of her." And when I sat down and thought about that shit, I was like, "Yo, like, this shit is spot on. This is something that like I really, really needed to hear. I didn't need to read this shit like in some type of quote on Google search. Like I needed to hear this from somebody that I had a connection with, and it just happened to be a person that was openly gay. And I was like, yo, like it was funny because I was talking to him like a couple of days ago, and I was like, yo, bro, you remember like back in the end of 2016, we had this conversation, and he was like, yeah. I was like, I love you for that shit, man. Like, I appreciate it. And he's like, oh, man, like, that's what family does. But, you know, like, just goes to show, like,
I salute that.
What you would think, like, I don't think most heterosexual men, black men, would think, like, yo, I can really learn something from a gay dude because his experiences are different and all these other things. But that's the closed-mindedness that keeps us from learning so many things that we could be exposed and open to learning, man. If we
so many people want to leave the room, you know, they're like, oh, exactly. I'm out. I know people that way, that somebody walks in the room, they want to leave already. And I'm like, dang, ain't nobody said nothing. Ain't nobody did nothing. Ain't even looked at you. And you're like, oh, I'm out of here. So, yeah, we got to cut that kind of shit out. We got to open our minds and ears. You know, you will disagree with things. You will agree with things. But if you open your minds and ears, you can be able to make those decisions. If you just walking out the room and somebody comes in there, you know, like I was roommates with a guy that didn't believe in God. And every night I would pray and he wouldn't pray. And like the place we were living in, it was his mom's apartment. And we were just coworkers, and I was on the couch and he was on the floor in the living room. It was a 1-bedroom apartment. So we were in the same area. So he saw how I operated, and I would get down and pray at night. And he would watch me do it every day. He would wait till I was done, and then we would start back talking or whatever till we go to sleep, get up and go to work the next morning. One night I was praying, and he would always tell me why he don't believe in God, why it doesn't make sense to him. Sometimes he made good points. I could see why you have these arguments. But one night I was praying, and he came and prayed with me. I didn't ask him anything. I just let him do it because I didn't want to ruin the moment. But after it was done, I asked him, why did he pray with me? And he was like, you're the first Christian I've been around that like didn't try to fight me or force. And he said everybody that was like, hey, you should believe in God, they would argue with him. You're stupid. You need to believe in God. You're going to go to hell. And you want to choke him, and they want to run his head into the wall. I just said, hey, this is what I believe. This is what you believe. I still love you. We just kept on living regular. Like I never did nothing strange or seemed like I don't want to be around him. And that approach changed the way he looked at things. And I'm not even coming with the TD Jakes gospel or nothing like that. It just let me see that a lot of times when we keep trying to force ideas on people, it just sways them the other way. When you could just do your thing, people can watch from afar. They may or may not join. You know,
man, that is like, I think that's been like one of my biggest lessons, bro. Like especially in regards to like marriage, it's like accepting my wife for where she is. Like I know because of my experience and my failures in my previous marriage, like I have this perspective of how things are supposed to go, or when things go bad. Like I'm like, yo, I kind of know how to handle this, but realizing that like my wife isn't me. Like, and the same thing with relationships, period. Like, yo, like there is something to be said about fully being able to accept a person for where they are and not try to force them to change. Like, realize that, like, yo, for you personally to become the person that you are right now and to get where you are with your comfort and all these other, like that shit took time.
Yeah.
And with, you know, with other people, like it's the same thing. Like everybody's in a different place in their journey, and the best thing that you can do is you can encourage them, you know, and say, hey, like, especially if you know exactly what they're trying to do or where they're trying to go, like you can encourage them and all these other things. But the best thing that you can do, man, is accept a person for who they are right now. Like,
facts.
Don't try to force your views. Don't try to like the last thing that I would ever do, and I think is because I tried to with my ex, was like I almost tried to like build her into an image that was satisfactory towards me, and resistance came. Like she was who she was before me, like, and she didn't like me trying to force her into something that I wanted her to be. But with my current wife, it's like, yo, like who you are is who you are. Like the vows and all these other things, like it's kind of where my mind goes every time that I'm kind of frustrated. I'm like, yo, like said, like I'll love her in sickness and health and all these other things. Like that shit also includes like accepting her for where she is and loving her regardless. Like, which was, I think that for me, like that was when I knew that I was ready to kind of take another step. Because after my last divorce, I was like, yo, like fuck bitches, get money. Like, I ain't think about marriage. Like, none of this shit. But like when me and her spent more time together, and like a lot of the things that I really, really longed for, like a family and an opportunity to be a father and all these other things, like when it was presented to me, and before I proposed to her, I was like, yo, if this girl never changes another day in her life, like, am I okay with who she is now? And like, without hesitation, I was like, yeah, absolutely. So like,
That's a question we
why
don't ask
wouldn't I?
ourselves.
Like, exactly. Like, I feel like it's whether you gay or straight, like it's hard enough to find like genuinely good people who. It's not hard to find good people, but it's hard to find people who will accept you like in your entirety, not just the positive parts, but like even when you feeling shitty and you feeling like you don't want to engage with people. Like a lot of people don't like that.
They
Like
think
my
life
wife,
is,
like her day.
they think it's the
You say what now?
They think life is the same.
Exactly.
They could just edit you
Exactly.
a little bit.
Yep, exactly. But like when I have those days or whatever, because I do suffer from depression. I do suffer from like generalized anxiety, where there are days where like I'm so detached from everything, like to where I'm pretty sure it makes things uncomfortable for my wife, but like those are conversations that I had with her prior to us getting married, and she was like, yo, I understand, like I accept you, like you're such a good person and I love you so much that like, yo, I'm willing to take the good with the bad. And I think that like people can say that shit, like it's easy to say that, it's easy to put it on paper and all these other things, but like when push comes to shove and you're in those situations, like it really, really shows like, yo, are you equipped to deal with this? And I feel like most people aren't, man. So it's kind of crazy, but you know, when you find that person, like I did, like I think me and my wife, we met in April of 2017. I proposed to her in December of the same year, and then we got married in May.
When you know, you know.
For me, and I don't know if it's like life is too short or whatever the case may be. I don't know if it like going through a divorce and like almost dying and stuff from like self-inflicted shit, like if it kind of gave me a new outlook out on life. But I really was like, yo, life is really too fucking short to like spend questioning and waiting for the perfect moment. Like, let me jump in this shit. This girl checks all the boxes. Yeah, exactly. So it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, she meets all the boxes, she meets all the requirements. Like, I look forward to hearing from her and all these other things. So like, why wouldn't I? No need to date for 3 or 4 years when you kind of already know. But that's me. That's not like a one size fits all thing. You know, people do whatever works for you. But like for me, like it was like, yo, like I love this girl to this extent. Like, let me make this shit official.
I'm gonna treat you like Jerry Springer because you dropping so much good gospel. I don't want nothing to be left unsaid. Do you have any final thoughts for those listeners out there? And this is the time too that you could plug your podcast. I ain't tripping because you might have things to say that was still unsaid, because we can go on all day about this. So if you got anything, any shout outs, any plugs, any merch, anything people need to know, or just final thoughts on the conversation we had.
Shout out to Verona, Mississippi. You made me who I am. No, but seriously, man, life is too short, man. And the one thing that I've really been kind of driving home to like everybody is like right now during this whole COVID situation, like it's uncertain, is stressful, like all these other things, but it's also a time to like sit down and really, really rest. Like for me, like I still work, like I got shit to do now. I got clients to call and all these other things, but this is a time that we're never going to get back. Where people feel like, yo, I got to be productive. I got to be doing this. I got to be doing that. I'm like, yo, once the world takes us off of being grounded, like everything is going to hit the floor like 100 miles per hour. Like, so take this time, like all those feelings that you found yourself being too busy for because you had a schedule and all these other things. Like right now when you don't have the time, like take your time, relax, recuperate, like process thoughts. It's completely okay with not doing anything, because I feel like our generation always feels like we need to be doing something. We need to be productive, doing this, that, and the third or whatever. Like it's okay to not do anything, to literally just chill. But outside of that, like rediscover yourself, find out like things that you need to work on. Like, I feel like for me, like, not doing physical work, but like I'm always thinking and always trying to become a better person, whether it's reading an article, whether it's like just reaching out to friends or whatever the case may be. I don't really have a lot, man. Like, I mean, check out the podcast. Like I said, we just shot the last episode of season 1, so we're gonna be on a break for maybe like a month or two. But at least I feel, and maybe I'm biased because I was the one that created it, but I feel like it's extremely insightful. Like, a lot of people, it kind of dives into things that I don't really post on social media, like the conversations I do, but you can see like that me and my wife, we're extremely human, and like we disagree on a lot of shit. But at the end of the day, like, what our common ground is that like our relationship is a lot more important than being right is, which is something that I struggle with, because when I know that I'm right, I know that I'm right. But realizing as you get older, so you become more mature, I realize, perspective and what's important in life. Like, it's cool to be right, but it's more important to like resolve issues and to be able to move forward. So yeah, I think that's all I got, bro.
Indeed. And what's the name of your podcast? Did you say that?
Oh, damn, I didn't even say it. The Proof, Not the Exception. Yeah, The Proof, Not the Exception. It's on Anchor, it's on Spotify, and it's also on Apple as well. So check it out.
Boom. Sounds like the gospel has been dropped. And like I always say, my final thought, smile, but don't let the world see, because they might try to hate on you. Y'all keep it smooth.